This is a sports catastrophe production. Hey there, hello, hello there. It's Jeff Cutastrophe and welcoming you to another sports catastrophe. And we are now in a brand new month. We are in March. It's time for the March 1st on this day. And on this day, 53 years ago, this thing happened. As you see in the picture, that is the Philadelphia Spectrum roof. Philadelphia Spectrum. Former home of the Philadelphia Flyers and the Sixers. So, anyway, this the arena was built in 1966 to accommodate the new NHL expansion for Philadelphia Flyers and also to put the 76ers in a better stadium and all that. So basically, there were a lot of fight cards. There were a lot of good boxing cards and wrestling cards. If you watch old WWE wrestling stuff from the 70s and 80s, those house shows from the Spectrum, it was lit. All that. Yeah, so the Flyers won their first ever home game in this building, 1-0 over the Penguins, thanks to a Bill Sutherland goal. At one time, the Spectrum held the world record for fastest conversion from hockey to basketball and all that. And the Spectrum was actually one of the first sports arenas to have a scoreboard with a message board with messages on it, alongside the Met Center in Bloomington, Minnesota, and the Los Angeles Forum. Furthermore, the message boards on the Spectrum scoreboard were the first dot matrix screens in pro hockey or basketball, capable of photos, animation, replays, and messages. And then the Arena Vision scoreboard replaced in 1986 with the rear projection video screens and all that. The Flyers won their first ever Stanley Cup at the Spectrum on May 1974 in front of 18,000 fans and, of course, millions in the U.S. watching on NBC as they won 1-0. But the most famous game the Flyers took part in was part of the 1976 Super Series, when teams from Russia would face some NHL competition. The Red Army team, known for having the great Vladdy Tretiak and Harlamov on it, took on the Flyers January 11, 1976. Unfortunately, though, that game would be marred by the Russians being upset over how the Flyers were using goonery to take down their best players and threatened to leave the ice. Unfortunately, though, they would not have gotten any money, any payment if they had balked. So basically, they had to play the game, and the Flyers won the game 4-1 as is. There were 10 NHL/NBA playoff championship series held at the Spectrum. The Flyers were in the Stanley Cup Finals in 74, 75, 76, 80, 85, and 87, playing against at the Spectrum. And the Sixers played at the Spectrum for the 77, 80, 82, and 83 NBA Finals. They even had a couple of NHL All-Star games, 76 and 92, and a couple of NBA All-Star games, 70 and 76, were at the Spectrum. So, yeah. The Spectrum was the only venue to host the NBA and NHL All-Star games in the same season. And it also hosted the Final Four for basketball, which was amazing. All that. The funny thing in 1980 was that all four Philadelphia teams, baseball's Phillies, basketball's Sixers, hockey's Flyers, and football's Eagles, would actually get into the championship round in the 80 season. But of course, for the Eagles, it would be 80-81. and they got one, as the Flyers lost in 6 games to the Islanders, the Sixers lost in 6 games to the Lakers, and the Eagles lost the Super Bowl to the Raiders. It hosted 2 Final Four, 76 and 81, both won by Indiana and Bob Knight. And it also was the site of the most famous last-second shot in NCAA tournament history, when Christian Laettner's turnaround shot eliminated Kentucky in the East Regional, getting Duke to the Final Four. But the moment you all want to hear about happened in 1968. On March 1st, 1968, wind blew the covering off the Spectrum's roof during a performance at the Ice Capades, forcing the building to have to close for a month while they had to see who was responsible to construct the roof again, and the damage had to be repaired. The Sixers moved their home games to the Convention Hall and to the Palestra. I believe that's where they used to play, the Palestra, where Villanova plays. Unfortunately, though, the NHL team was out of luck as neither of the 76ers temporary homes had ice rinks, and there were no NHL quality sites in Philadelphia. So the Flyers had to move their next home game against the Oakland Seals to Madison Square Garden, which would be a doubleheader of sorts. And then they had to play the Bruins in a home game at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, which is funny. But also the Flyers Bruins game was famous for Larry Seidel of the Flyers going apeshit because basically Boston players were insulting his Jewish heritage and all that. But they decided to have their base at their minor league club, the AHL Quebec Aces. So the Coliseum Quebec City hosted NHL games before the Nordiques came by. But anyway, so basically, it was the first time in 4 decades Quebec City got NHL home games. Thankfully, though, the roof was prepared for the Flyers to return to the Spectrum for the playoffs against the St. Louis Blues in 1968. So basically, the Philadelphia Spectrum was basically a wrestling place and a boxing place. Hockey, fine, but the roof just ruined things going on. Imagine the Flyers playing in Quebec City. Hey, anything can happen. I'm Jeff Diamond.